be giving us a Lake Michigan habitat report.
Well, thank you. I'm going to provide an update on behalf of the Habitat Working Group of the Lake Michigan Tech Committee meeting, or Lake Michigan Tech Committee. I'm going to talk about priority management areas in Lake Michigan, and then I'm going to just give some high-level updates of some restoration projects that are going on in Lake Michigan. This is the current makeup of the Habitat Working Group. It's a growing group. We've definitely added a lot of folks in the last couple of years. Our directive is to provide regular updates and reports on the status of aquatic habitat to the Lake Michigan Tech Committee and to the Lake Michigan Committee. We're primarily focused around priority management areas. We do provide the status update for the State of the Lake dashboard. We also put together information to help the technical committee and the Lake Committee identify habitat priorities, particularly related to priority habitat or priority management areas, which I'm going to talk about over the next few slides. And then we also are beginning to compile management actions within those priority management areas, and that's what most of the presentation today will be, is highlighting some management actions. So I know a lot of folks here are familiar with the environmental principles in the priority management areas, but I thought it would be useful to just provide just a little bit of context for those who may not. The Council of Lake Committees put together this environmental principles document several years ago, and basically the intent of that was to lay out how functional habitats being protected and improved were critical if we're going to meet our fish community objectives across the Great Lakes. And it also highlighted how the Great Lakes are such large systems that we need systematic, adaptive, cumulative, and collaborative approaches in order to achieve those goals. They laid out a process for the lakes to identify environmental priorities. Each lake identifies functional habitats and priority management areas. All of those were bounded by fish community objectives, so different species, but also life stages of those species were identified related to those functional habitat areas, and then impediments and management actions were identified. In Lake Michigan, the Habitat Working Group and the Lake Technical Committee worked together to pull all this information together on functional habitats, species, impediments, and management actions. And for every one of the combinations of those, this was all entered into a spreadsheet. And for all combinations of those, every single combination, there would be a different row in the spreadsheet. So this resulted in a really large spreadsheet. I know you folks from other lakes dealt with the same thing, these large spreadsheets that were pretty difficult to manage and also difficult to interpret. Despite that, the Lake Committee was able to navigate that and identify 5-year priorities for Lake Michigan. But moving forward, we definitely want to think about how to manage this a little bit better in a more digestible way. So, led by Jeff Tyson, Arthur Cooper from Michigan State University has been basically taking this spreadsheet and using the locations and the functional habitats to create a map viewer, to create a data layer that's served up in a map viewer in a much more digestible way. He initially put together a layer, provided it to the Habitat Working Group and the Tech Committee. It was reviewed and comments were provided. He's updated that, and this is the current final draft of it. We're getting close to having a completed layer, but this is the final draft. And to give you a sense of how this works, so obviously within the map viewer, it's interactive. You can zoom in, you can turn layers on and off, you can click on them and see all the information on there. To give you a sense of it, we can zoom into southern Green Bay, and in the map viewer, if you click on the blue layer is the nearshore area in the southern part of Green Bay, and muskie were identified as a priority for that region, for that functional habitat type. If we look at the light red area, smallmouth bass, walleye, and yellow perch were identified for that area, and that's the nearshore for the whole of Green Bay. The green area is the offshore for southern Green Bay. Brown trout were identified for that. And then what rivers are priority management areas, you can click on those as well. If we click on the Oconto River, lake sturgeon, smallmouth bass, and whitefish were identified for the Oconto River. Now, within this, there's a whole bunch of other information. If you look at the tabs, so for lake sturgeon, the tab at the end, if you click on that tab, there's a whole bunch of other information that's specific to that species within that river system. So if we click on lake trout, for lake sturgeon for the Oconto River, we can see that the life stage is spawning. The action category is coastal wetland connectivity. The status is highly impaired. There's a whole bunch of other information if you scroll down, which obviously we can't do that in a slide, but there's a whole bunch of information. So there's a lot of information in the database, but it's still way more manageable than the spreadsheet, and should be very, very useful for a 5-year review of the priority management areas, and ultimately for the Lake Committee to identify priorities after that 5-year review. All right, so now I'm going to highlight some management actions across the lake. So first I'm going to talk about reef assessment before I get into specific restoration projects. There's a lot of reef assessment activity in Lake Michigan. Reefs are important to a lot of different species. And while we know a lot about some reefs, most reefs we know little to nothing about. So it is important that we learn more about a lot of our reefs in order to adequately identify restoration or protection opportunities for spawning reefs. And there has been a lot of activity in Lake Michigan related to reefs. There's a project in Northeast Lake Michigan led by Michigan DNR to get out and hit as many reefs as possible. So there's a bunch of reefs that were hit along the north shore of Lake Michigan, reefs that were hit in the Grand Traverse Bay, Little Traverse Bay area, and a couple of reefs in southern Lake Michigan near Saugatuck as well. There's all kinds of information collected on these reefs. Pete Esselman from USGS has done multi-beam on a lot of these reefs, collecting information on bathymetry and the geomorphology of the reefs. And then the rest of the team has collected a whole bunch of different habitat variables, information on the condition of the reefs, invasive species densities, and also what fish are spawning on the reefs as well. There's a similar project led by Fish and Wildlife Service in Green Bay. For that project, they phased it out. So the first phase is more that mapping work, and the second phase is the biological work. And you can see the sites in red are sites that they've mapped so far, and the black starred sites are sites that they plan to get to in the future. Illinois has been doing reef work for a long time, but that's historically largely been focused on Julian's Reef and Waukegan Reef. But over the last 8 years or so, there's been a big effort to map a whole bunch of other reefs using side-scan sonar and drop camera work for validation. And you can see the variety of reefs that have been mapped here. The graphic to the lower right shows Gimby's Reef, and the red areas that were highlighted, though, those are areas that were identified as lake trout spawning habitat. The Mid-Lake Reef Complex around the Southern Refuge has been an area of focus for a long time, primarily led up by University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. That work, they're continued to work in that area, and I think the plans are to continue that work. Learning more about that complex and lake trout spawning and a lot of other information about reef dynamics. I wanted to highlight the bottomland mapping that NOAA is doing. It's not specific reef work, but certainly that bottomland mapping work can be used to inform a lot of reef habitats where they've done the bottomland mapping. The green areas here are areas that are completed. The areas in the orangish yellow are planned. And of course, this information, when put together, it's not just reefs, but just a wide variety of habitat information is coming from this. So this is something that the Habitat Working Group is really keeping track of, the progress on the habitat mapping. And these areas in white here are areas that they plan to hit this year for further characterization. Over the last few years, there's been a whole bunch of reef assessment projects around the Great Lakes that have gotten together on usually monthly calls to share information and share methodologies and share data. This is a group that Lake Michigan has been very well represented on. Just another way of demonstrating just how active folks in Lake Michigan are in reef assessment. All right, so on to some of the restoration projects. On the Milwaukee River, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, the Kleitsch Dam or something like that. It's too many consonants for me. But this is a dam that blocks passage that blocked passage for lake sturgeon. But in December of 2023, a project was completed to create a bypass around that dam. You can see the bypass here on the right, or in the aerial version of the bypass. So sturgeon can pass through that, as can other Great Lakes fish species. This freed up 25 miles of habitat within the Milwaukee River, and another 29 miles of habitat in other tributaries that flow into the Milwaukee. And then there's also 2,400 acres of wetlands that are connected because of it as well. And this is a map of projected sturgeon habitat, with the green being likely habitat, the yellow being potential habitat. And you can see the dam is right here. And you can see there's a lot more green and yellow that's now connected than what there had been previously. The Rubble Ridges project in Illinois, off of Illinois Beach State Park. This was a project that was put in 2021 that was intended to help protect the beach habitat, which was eroding at that time, and also wetlands along the coast there. It's also, this is also an area where there's not a lot of submerged rocky habitat available to fish, so it also had the potential to provide a lot of fish benefits. The Illinois Natural History Survey and the Illinois Geological Survey, and I forgot the Geological Survey logo, they're doing 5 years post-monitoring of this. They have definitely determined that it is performing the sediment protection role that it was intended to do, and there's all sorts of other biological monitoring as well as part of this that I'm not going to do justice here. The sediment results were encouraging enough that there's already been a big ramp up to this work. In 2024, 27 additional breakwaters that were both a combination of emergent and submergent were put in both north and south of the Rubble Ridge, or Rubble Ridges. And one thing I really like about this project is there haven't been a ton of coastal resilience projects in the Great Lakes. And as far as I know, the ones that have gone in haven't had any sort of biological assessments. And it's neat that this project has both the coastal geomorphology work, but also the biological work as well. Southern Green Bay, at the mouth of the Fox River. This area is an area of concern, and over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of restoration activity focused on that area of concern, and almost all of this work has fisheries benefits. This is not just one project, this is a whole bunch of projects that fell in that region, and you can see there's these logos here. There's a logo for pike, one for sturgeon, one for whitefish, and one for muskie. And the fine print lists all kinds of other fisheries benefits as well. There's red horse, walleye, all kinds of, there's basically fisheries benefits all over the place here. So this work definitely should have all kinds of benefits for fisheries in Green Bay. And some of this work is completed, but a lot of it is ongoing and still to come. Muskegon Lake, very similar. It's an area of concern. I think it's been removed as an area of concern, I believe. Is that right, Jay?
If not, it's close.
Okay. Anyway, it's getting there. And there's been a lot of activity there over the last decade as well. One thing I wanted to highlight is a project that was done pretty recently in the lower Muskegon River, just up here where in the Muskegon River as it's coming into Muskegon Lake. There was some floodplain wetland that was created and reconnected to the river, and that's really notable because a lot of Great Lakes fish migrate up the Muskegon River to spawn, most notably walleye. And that habitat should be excellent nursery habitat for fish, for small fish coming down the river looking for a place to forage and grow. I mentioned the Northeast Lake Michigan Reef Assessment Project. That project is wrapping up right now. They're working on a final report for that. But one of the outcomes of that is that there are some potential restoration opportunities in the west arm of Grand Traverse Bay, as well as those two reefs in southern Lake Michigan off of Saugatuck. And there's going to be some work this coming year to do some sediment and wave modeling to try to look at different restoration scenarios and see how how those sites would behave with some manipulation. So hopefully that will result in some future potential restoration work as well. One project that's in development at the Naval Station in Chicago, in the Chicago area, is some wetland restoration work that will help create some submergent and emergent vegetation areas that should provide some spawning and nursery habitat for fish. It should also improve water quality, creating a buffer there, which will also be beneficial for fish. This is the White Lake Celery Flats project. This is along the White River, just upstream from White Lake, which is a drowned river mouth. This is a really interesting project. The photo on the left shows a large agricultural field here, and in the last decade, that's 164 acres, and it's all been converted to wetland over the last decade. But that wetland's not connected to the White River, so fish aren't able to see the benefits from that, and it's not getting the full water quality benefits that it could get either. So there's a feasibility study right now to evaluate the potential to do that reconnection. And then in the Illinois-Indiana border area, there's another AOC similar to Muskegon Lake and the Lower Fox River, along in the Grand Calumet River. There's been similar to those projects. There's been a lot of remediation work at this site. There's some ongoing work right now in the Lake George Canal. It's a lot of dredging for toxins, but there's a lot of fish health warnings in that area, and so this work should also help with a lot of that. And there's lots of other projects. The Habitat Working Group really is just starting to do inventories of projects related to priority management areas. This is something we're going to be focusing more on in the future. And I just basically was pulling together some projects to just give some highlights on those. But in the future, there's all kinds of projects that I didn't touch on. And in the future, we plan to have a much better inventory of everything that's going on in the lake. And I just want to thank a whole bunch of people provided me with slides or images. And so I want to thank all those folks. That's all I have.